Figures in slick, dark clothing flooded the alley, their intention as clear as the stormy sky above. Yadiel's men reacted instinctively, guns drawn, but Beatrix moved before anyone could blink. "No! Listen to me!" She lunged forward, putting herself in front of Yadiel, a living barrier at that moment of chaos. A gunshot rang out, echoing off the brick walls as Beatrix tackled him to the ground, her weight pressing down on him, hearts pounding in the shared shock of the moment. Adrenaline surging through the street. The rain soaked through their clothes, merging at their skin, yet neither moved away. "Get up! We need to move!" Ricardo shouted, but Yadiel couldn't focus on anything but the electric connection igniting between him and Beatrix as she whispered urgently near his ear. "Keep your head in the game, and I will keep my heart out of it," she murmured, pressing her forehead against his, the warmth of her breath mixing with the cold rain. Yadiel, caught between fury and something deeper, felt a trembling inside as the weight of her words sank in. It wasn't just a matter of survival, not anymore. It was about love, loyalty, and the desperate act of being seen. "You promise?" he whispered, fingertips brushing against the damp fabric of her sleeve. "Every time," she answered fiercely. "Now, how do we fight back?" Behind them, a shout of anger erupted from the rival gang, fists raised, bullets flying. The atmosphere shifted to chaos, each sound accompanied by the splatter of water, emotions clashing just as fiercely as the storms above them. And just like that, they sprang into action like synchronized lightning strikes, moving against the tide of their pursuers. But as they fought together, exchanging glances filled with unresolved questions and simmering tension, there was a fleeting sense that if they could survive this, they might emerge unscathed, stronger, together. With that thought, Yadiel tackled a competitor, while Beatrix sent a punch through another, laughter erupting into the storm. "That was quite a punch," Beatrix teased amidst the chaos, a smile breaking through her resolute demeanor, and for a brief moment the world faded around them. All that mattered was each other, battling against both enemies and fears, where love was woven through every strike. "Keep that spirit, Beatrix. We just might." But the thunder rolled louder, drowning out his words, and they plunged back into the storm. And as the alley erupted with conflict, the true battle was just beginning. Scene 22, a life-changing choice. A heavy rain drummed against the cobblestones of the narrow alley, each drop echoing like the pounding of Yadiel's heart. The bitter chill of the evening air gnawed at him, mirroring the turmoil within as memories of their last clash lingered in his mind. He stood beneath the dim glow of a flickering street lamp, the light casting long shadows that danced across the of a battle fought just hours before. The taste of iron filled his mouth, a reminder of the chaos spun from the tangled threads of his life, while the scent of soaked earth and desperation filled the air. In the shadows, barely stepping out of view, Beatrix emerged, her expression sharp yet vulnerable, the moment he turned his gaze towards her. The reins slid off her delicate frame, accentuating both her fragility and fierce determination. The disguise she'd worn was now drenched, making her appear even more striking against the dim backdrop of the alley, an unexpected warrior emerging from the storm. "Yadiel," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor beneath. "You can't keep pretending this doesn't matter." "Pretending?" he shot back, anger flaring like a match striking against darkness. "You don't understand anything about me, Beatrix. You think this is just a game?" "Game?" Her laughter struck like lightning, startling him momentarily. "Perhaps you've forgotten. It's you who plays with the lives of others. You wield power like a sword, yet when it's time to confront your demons, you retreat like a coward." The words hung in the wet air, fueled by a tempest of unresolved feelings. The tension thickened, the rain pausing as if to catch its breath, allowing their heated exchange to unfold unfettered. Anger swirled around them, thickening the atmosphere and charging the space with an electric intimacy. "I'm not a coward," Yadiel replied, each word dripping with indignation. "I'm trying to keep you safe." "Safe," she interrupted, stepping closer, her eyes sparkling with defiance. "By hiding the truth? By casting me aside because it's easier to think of me as a burden?" Yadiel glanced at her, struck by the fierceness folded into her petite frame. "You don't understand the stakes. We could lose everything." "Everything?" she countered, her voice rising. Everything is what happens when you lie. You avoid the truth like a thief dodging a spotlight. What happens when the light finds you, Yadiel? The rain thickened, drenching them both. The tension shifted from argumentative to palpable, each look imbued with a raw intensity that felt like a storm breaking within. Maybe it would be easier, he said, his voice dropping to a near whisper, to let you go. Her heart raced at the implied finality of his words, each syllable a weight crushing the air between them. You think you can walk away? Just like that? I've walked away from worse, he replied, his defiance faltering as he studied her face, drawing strength from the resolve gracing her features. Then why do you look so terrified? Beatrix pressed, her own heart swelling with a mix of yearning and frustration. Don't you see? You're not just a crime boss, Yadiel. You're a man with secrets big enough to tear us apart. With a thunderclap, the rain surged, drenching them further. In that moment, their faces were illuminated, a flash of vulnerability mingled with raw desire that passed between them like kindling waiting for flame. All this pretense, it's more than I can bear, he confessed, closing the space between them. The soft warmth of her breath caressed his skin, warming the chill gripping his heart. Beatrix searched his eyes, her own equally stormy. Then let's strip away the masks. Show me who you truly are. Tension sparked electric in the space between, their gazes locked. Their breaths mingled in the humid air, and realization dawned simultaneously. A life-changing choice lay before them, the weight of it heavy and tender. I don't know if I can, Yadiel admitted, a flicker of vulnerability sneaking into his tone. Maybe that's the problem. Beatrix reached out, her fingers brushing against his forearm, an invitation teetering between trust and revelation. Maybe being brave means facing not just the outside world, but each other. In the downpour, beneath a symphony of rain, two hearts drew closer, their destinies intertwined, propelled by the thunderous echo of truth spoken too loudly for the storm to drown. Scene 23, a fragile new beginning. The late afternoon sun poured through the large, ornately framed windows of the Sinclair estate, casting long shadows across the polished mahogany floor. Beatrix, her dark hair pinned tightly against her head, stood in the airy kitchen, her sleeves rolled up as she fidgeted over a bowl of freshly made dough. The rich aroma of cinnamon wafted through the air, mingling with the tang of lemon zest, but the concoction hardly brought her joy. Instead, she kneaded the dough with increasing fervor, each push and fold a reflection of the tight knots of tension in her heart. Behind her, Yadiel leaned against the doorway, arms crossed and expression inscrutable, the late sun illuminating the sharp angles of his profile. The charm that usually radiated from him felt muted today, replaced by a heavy atmosphere that mirrored the darkening sky outside. Are you going to just watch, or are you going to get in here and help? Beatrix asked, her voice tinged with playful defiance, but underneath lay a flicker of impatience. Yadiel stepped in, his brow furrowing. What do you want me to do, exactly? I've never made a pie in my life. Then it's about time you learn, she replied, flicking a piece of dough in his direction. Get your hands dirty. The world's not going to end if you can't bake. He chuckled, the kind of rich sound that once drew her in, but she sensed the distance behind it now. It might if you're the one in charge of it. Despite his attempt at humor, the light in his eyes faltered, an unspoken frustration simmering beneath the surface. I'm serious, Yadiel, she said, turning to face him, her hands dusted with flour. We've been through a lot. It's time we at least try to rebuild something. We owe it to ourselves. Yadiel's gaze hardened, shadows gathering along the lines of his jaw. Rebuilding? You make it sound so simple. It's not like a pie, Beatrix. You can't just toss ingredients together and hope for the best. She took a step closer, the heat between them palpable, and lowered her voice. Then teach me how to build from the ruins. I'm no stranger to obstacles. You know that better than anyone. The tension crackled between them like the unstrung notes of a symphony waiting to erupt. Yadiel opened his mouth but hesitated, the internal conflict evident in his eyes. Just then, a thunderclap echoed in the distance, punctuating their standoff. Look at the weather, Beatrix said, glancing out the window where dark clouds coiled ominously in the sky. It's a storm, just like us. He stepped back, the door slamming shut behind him, ringing through the expansive kitchen like a tolling bell. Is that what you think? That we're a storm to weather? I have my own turbulence, Beatrix. I cannot let you in. Her heart sank, vulnerability blossoming in her chest. But you already have, she whispered. You know my secrets. I'm not perfect, Yadiel, and neither are you. This isn't just about you. Not anymore. The silence that enveloped them was thick, electric. Yadiel's expression shifted, the weight of his unspoken sorrow surfacing, a quiet tempest. You don't understand what's at stake. My world is filled with danger. No one is safe. You don't know the lengths I go to protect my family. And what about us? Beatrix challenged, her voice steady yet passionate, trembling with restrained emotion. We deserve something beyond the chaos. A chance, even if it means crossing the lines we thought we'd never dare. Regret flickered in his chocolate brown eyes, capturing a light that felt so exquisite and fleeting. Perhaps we can't forge a bond that stands against everything we've faced. Or worse, everything we might face again. Beatrix breathed deeply, the scent of cinnamon clinging to her. You could decide our future, or we could just keep kneading this dough, pretending the world doesn't exist outside this kitchen. A gust of wind rattled the windows, and rain began to drum on the roof like a persistent rhythm, echoing the turmoil within. To her surprise, Yadiel moved closer, the gap between their worlds narrowing, intrigue and uncertainty pulling him in. I'm not saying it's possible, he murmured, his voice low and earnest. And you don't have to promise me forever, Beatrix interjected, her gaze holding his with ferocity. Just let me in, if only for this moment. Yadiel hesitated, and in that instant, a flicker of hope threaded through the thick air, fragile yet vibrant, pulsing with the chance at something more, a new beginning amidst chaos. We'll have to navigate this carefully, Beatrix. I can't guarantee safety. Who needs safety? She grinned, a spark of mischief returning to her eyes. Just think of all the fun we can have forging our own path. He chuckled softly, warmth igniting in his chest as he leaned closer, their lips almost touching, the world outside forgotten. In that charged moment, the storm outside raged on, but here, enveloped in comfort and warmth, they both surrendered to the possibility of what lay ahead. Scene 24, healing together. The late afternoon sun dipped low in the sky, casting a soft golden glow across the living room, where the faint scent of lavender lingered in the air. Beatrix stood with her arms crossed, the directness of her gaze piercing through the shadows that clung to Yadiel's figure. What if you've been wrong about the way you see yourself? She asked, her voice a gentle mix of challenge and compassion. Yadiel leaned against the arm of the plush navy sofa, the fabric warm and inviting against the cold that seeped into his bones. He looked away, the muscles of his jaw tightening subtly. I've made my choices, Beatrix. I know what I am, he replied, his voice masked with a protective edge, the weight of his secret pulling at him. But is that all you can be? Beatrix stepped closer, the light catching the golden flecks in her dark eyes. A crime lord? That's not the whole story. With a flick of emotion that surprised even him, Yadiel turned to face her fully. What do you know about me? The things I've had to do? The things I've sacrificed? Everyone sees the title, but they don't see the man inside, he said, his voice lowering, unabashed vulnerability threading through the bravado. For a moment, silence enveloped them. The tension morphed from one of confrontation to something deeply resonant. Beatrix recognized the flicker of fear in his eyes. You've sacrificed so much, Yadiel, she said softly, but maybe it's time for you to be brave enough to let someone else help carry that burden. He scoffed lightly, the sound devoid of mirth. Help? You think I'm about to let someone in? No one survives in my world doing that. Yet the hardness in his voice faltered, revealing a flicker of doubt. Even the strongest walls have cracks, she pressed, her tone steady. You're a powerful man, but you're also human. Can't you see how beautiful that is? He recoiled as though struck. Beautiful? He echoed incredulously. No one ever calls me beautiful. Fierce, perhaps, ruthless even, but not beautiful. Beatrix shook her head, her resolve softening the edges of her initial urgency. You're beautiful in this raw state of honesty. It's terrifying, actually, but that's why you confound me. His laughter was bitter. What is attractive about a man who stands on the edge of everything, burdened with a secret that could destroy everything he's built? But that secret doesn't define you, Yadiel, she insisted. the intensity of her expression challenging the shadows of his doubt. As the sunlight danced through the open window, Beatrix took a step closer, the warmth of her presence wrapping around him like a familiar embrace. You define yourself. You have a choice to rewrite the story. The room felt smaller, the air thick with anticipation as Yadiel searched her gaze, seeking an anchor amid the tempest of his thoughts. What if I can't? His voice was low, a tremor of raw emotion slipping through the cracks in his armor. Beatrix's gaze softened, and without a word, she stepped into his space, the space between them evaporating. In that moment, she reached for his hand, her fingers sliding into the warm embrace of his palm. You can, she pledged softly. I'll be here with you, Yadiel. Don't face your demons alone. He swallowed, the knot in his throat tightening, battling against the softness of her pledge. What if I'm not enough, he whispered. Then we become enough together, Beatrix replied earnestly, her grip tightening reassuringly. Outside, a sudden crash echoed through the street, jolting them both. Beatrix released his hand instantly, and the tension shattered like glass. What was that? She exclaimed, her instincts flaring. Stay here, Yadiel commanded. The authoritative edge returned, yet tempered now by a sense of urgency mixed with protectiveness. He stepped toward the window, peering out to locate the source of the disturbance. Yadiel, wait! But her voice trailed off as he moved, the momentary connection of warmth and vulnerability disappearing into the corporeal reality surrounding them. With a sharp intake of breath, she too approached the window. What if it's nothing? You don't have to. Just stay back. His voice held a sharpness, but she knew it was not a dismissal. He was afraid, and she sensed it like an undercurrent vibrating between them. As he glanced back at her, a myriad of emotions crossed his face: fear, determination, but also hope. In that instant, Beatrix understood the battle he faced within. Remember what we talked about, she urged quietly, holding his gaze. Face whatever it is. Together. The noise outside escalated, echoing the chaotic world they both inhabited, unrelenting and wild. But within this fierce exchange of glances, there was an unspoken vow. Whatever lay beyond those windows, perhaps it was nothing compared to the demons they would face together. Scene 25. The power of vulnerability. The night air wrapped around Beatrix like a silken shawl, the dim glow of lanterns flickering through the dusky streets of Carrington, casting playful shadows that danced across her face. A quiet stillness settled over the alleyway, the distant hum of revelers from the ball echoing in the back of her mind. She stood beneath a gnarled tree, her thoughts tangled in the weight of her disguise. She could still feel the laughter ringing in her ears, the flutter of skirts brushing against her legs. It felt so far removed from the reality she now faced, yet tonight it felt as if the world had shrunk down to just her and Yadiel. Yadiel appeared at the mouth of the alley, his deep-set eyes scanning the darkness like a hunter tracking prey. The tension in his shoulders bespoke authority, but tonight, a hint of vulnerability peeked through the walls he had carefully constructed. He stepped closer, the scent of mahogany and a slight hint of brimstone trailing him. Beatrix? He said, his voice low, tumbling through the air like a forgotten promise. Yadiel, she replied, feigning confidence, her heart thumping like a wild drum in her chest. Here they were, two souls entwined in a dance of danger and desire, standing at the precipice of their truths. As he approached, she could see the lines of worry etched into his brow, shadows of burdens only they could fathom. I've been thinking, he began, the words hesitant but laced with an underlying intensity, about what comes next. He paused, as if weighing the significance of the revelation. This life, it isn't just a game of survival anymore. Is it not? She retorted, attempting to mask her own fears. A game of survival is all we seem to know. Even as she spoke, an unguarded impulse washed over her. She took a bold step closer, invading his space, feeling the magnetic draw between them, the electric urgency simmering just beneath the surface. Sometimes, he sighed, struggling against the vulnerability that trembled on the edge of his lips, I feel like I'm holding everything together with threads of deception. His gaze bore into her, raw and unfiltered. What if those threads unravel? The alley grew heavier with unspoken words. Beatrix felt her chest tighten at the sight of the defiant facade slipping away, revealing the man behind the monster. She gathered her courage, stepping closer still. And if they do, she asked softly, a challenge cloaked in tenderness. What do you fear more, losing control or losing yourself? There's something terrifying. He glanced away, then locked eyes with her again, about opening up to someone. I've built this fortress around me, and every time I let someone in, he faltered, it feels like a gamble. Isn't love itself a gamble? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The weight of their shared secrets hung in the air, their vulnerabilities hanging like ripe fruit waiting to fall. He closed the distance between them, the warmth radiating off him, igniting the space around them. What if I could be honest with you, Beatrix? There was longing in his gaze, and the sincerity made her breath hitch. The truth pounded against her veins. She could almost taste it. Then let's be brave together, she challenged, her pulse racing, the tension sizzling between them. A silence enveloped them before he leaned in, oh so slightly, as if testing the waters of her willingness. Her breath hitched, a flutter of warmth igniting in her chest as the air thickened with anticipation. What do you dream of? He asked suddenly, his voice a caress, breaking the spell. Dream? Her heart danced to a different drum. I dream of a world without masks, of acceptance, of being able to stand beside someone I admire without fear of judgment. The confession hung between them, shimmering with honesty. And should I be a part of that dream? He challenged, the timbre of his words low and inviting. His presence was disarming, and suddenly, the distance between dreams and reality blurred. In that fleeting moment, they were a world apart and yet entirely intertwined. With a breath, she closed her eyes, leaning into him, their faces almost touching, an intricate dance of warmth and fear, desire and trepidation. Every part of me wants you close, Yadiel, she whispered, her voice a thread of vulnerability that she allowed to unravel in the quiet night. Before she could second-guess, he closed the gap, enveloping her in his embrace. The kiss was soft at first, exploring the trembling lines of hesitation before deepening, igniting her heart in a cascade of longing. Their kisses flourished in the shadowy sanctuary, blending warmth with the whispers of the night, two fractured souls finding solace in the other's daring vulnerability. As the kiss broke, they both pulled back, gasping for breath, the world around them disappearing amid the rising tension of their hearts. Then we faced the dangers together, he said, his voice steady, clinging to the hope that flickered in his gaze like a beacon. Together, she echoed, her resolve ignited in the glow of shared dreams. Scene 26, The Unbreakable Vow. The autumn sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the cobblestone courtyard of Yadiel Sinclair's estate, where the last remnants of summer clung stubbornly to the air. Beatrix Caldwell stood by the fountain, her fingers tracing the cool water's surface, as though it could wash away the tension coiling inside her. Each ripple shimmered with a glint of sunlight, reflecting a kaleidoscope of emotions that flared within her. A servant hurried past, carrying a stack of linen, but the world around her felt distant, muted, like an unsung melody. Do you ever stop to breathe? Yadiel's voice broke the charm of stillness. He emerged from the shadows, a storm within a man, his dark coat billowing gently in the breeze. His presence was magnetic, compelling her to turn, even as a small thrill of uncertainty sparked in her chest. Is it too much to hope for a moment of peace? She replied, smiling despite her racing heart. The weight beneath her smile concealed 1,000 unspoken words. Yadiel stepped closer, noting the tautness of her shoulders, the way she avoided his eyes. You're going to need more than peace, Beatrix. You know that. His voice dropped, becoming a low thread of intimacy. She caught his gaze, and for a moment the world outside fell away, leaving only the two of them standing amidst the clamor of autumn leaves and whispers of past decisions. What do you believe I need? She challenged lightly, although her heart drummed an anxious cadence. Someone who can keep you safe, he said, his expression hardening slightly, a shadow passing across his face like a cloud across the sun. You shouldn't have to carry all the weight alone. Nearby, the sound of laughter erupted from a group of Yadiel's men, loud and boisterous, oblivious to the solemnity of their conversation. Beatrix's resolve flickered. And what makes you believe you can shoulder that weight? She asked, unable to suppress the defiance in her tone. The urge to retreat, to protect her heart, waged war against the draw of his intensity. Yadiel stepped closer, the the space between them narrowing until the air felt charged with an unspoken promise. Because I've made too many mistakes already, ones that have put you in danger. The intensity of his dark eyes bore into hers. I vow to protect you, no matter the cost. Vows mean little when they're spoken too freely, Beatrix replied, letting sarcasm seep through, though she yearned to believe him. He caught her wrist gently, his touch igniting a warmth that spread through her. This vow is not free, he murmured, voice low and fervent. It binds me to you in ways I cannot explain. I will fight for you. I will fight against whatever demons linger in our shadows. Beatrix's breath caught, surprise and longing crashing against her barriers. She searched his face, recalling the moments of vulnerability he'd shown, his burdens hidden beneath an iron mask. You may not be able to stop them, she whispered, a flicker of doubt threading through her words, but deep within her, hope began to stir. I have to believe I can. Yadiel's thumb brushed over her knuckles, a fleeting touch that promised so much more. I refuse to let the past dictate our future any longer. His gaze lingered on her lips, a moment stretched taut between them like the surface of the fountain, rippling with anticipation. The laughter of his men faded into the background, and the world seemed to draw a breath. Beatrix leaned in closer, the magnetic force of his presence drawing her toward him. And what if I can't let you? She teased gently, but the challenge hung in the air. Then you'll have to find another way to let me in. His smile was small, but it lit something fierce within her. He lowered his brow, closing the distance further, the moment thick with unfulfilled desires and whispered promises. In that electrified heartbeat, the laughter faded, the air stilled, and they existed solely within this cocoon of vulnerability. She closed her eyes, feeling the warmth radiate from him, every need unvoiced spilling into the space between them. Then softly, gently, Yadiel's lips brushed against in a tentative kiss, filled with the weight of unspoken fears and desires. It was delicate, lingering, their breaths mingling as if the universe itself held its breath, teetering on the edges of both thrill and dread. As the kiss deepened, the world outside faded, leaving only the promise of something profound. Something that, despite everything, felt undeniably right. It was a vow, as real and unyielding as the ground beneath them, a commitment forged amid uncertainty and cloaked in longing. When they finally pulled away, the air hummed with unspoken truth. Whatever comes next, we face it together, Yadiel vowed, his eyes dark and swirling with emotion. Beatrix nodded, a serene determination settling over her. Together, she echoed, her heart steadying against the storm. They stood there, bound by promise and desire, ready to face the tempest ahead. Scene 27. Threads of Destiny. The grand ballroom shimmered under a canopy of crystal chandeliers, the laughter of the elite reverberating off the elegantly gilded walls. Beatrix Caldwell leaned against one of the massive pillars, her attire stylishly masked beneath a tailored suit, flavorful in color, yet meticulously subdued, every inch of her disguise exuding the confident audacity of the man she impersonated. "Are you certain he'll show?" she asked, tilting her head slightly, her eyes glinting with impatience. Her voice was laced with curiosity, layered beneath the pretense of casual confidence. "Of course he will," Yadiel Sinclair replied, his presence radiating authority as he casually adjusted the cuff of his silk shirt. His gaze roamed the room like a predator searching for a stray target. "He never passed up a good opportunity to undermine me." "And yet he still underestimates you," Beatrix murmured, stepping a fraction closer, drawn to him despite the tension that electrified the air between them. The allure of danger buzzed at the edges of their connection. Yadiel turned to her, a playful smirk dancing on his lips, the warmth in his eyes betraying a flicker of vulnerability. "Or maybe he thinks he can play me like a pawn." He leaned in, his breath whispering against her ear, sending a shiver coursing down her spine. "But it's more than that. He doesn't know how far I'm willing to go to protect what's mine, and I intend to make him regret underestimating me." Beatrix's heart raced, each word igniting a fierce longing within her. "And what exactly is yours?" she teased lightly, though the weight of unspoken boundaries lurked in her voice. With a subtle shift, Yadiel's expression softened, a hint of seriousness overcoming the playful candor. "Everything I've built, every life I carry, and you." The heavy pause lingered, a breath drawn between them loaded with meaning. You complicate everything, Beatrix. Another laugh broke through their moment, this one from behind them, drawing their attention to a group of revelers clad in extravagant gowns and sharp suits. At the forefront stood Devlin, Yadiel's cousin, charisma crackling as he somehow managed to charm the room, drawing laughter and admiration. "Look who made it, the masked enigma and the charming rogue," he declared, unabashedly diverting attention towards them. Yadiel straightened, leveling a glower at Devlin. "Can't you afford to be subtle for once?" The bite in his voice clashed with the warm smirk that never left his face. "Since when is life about subtlety?" Devlin laughed, merriment ringing out as he grabbed a glass of champagne from a passing server. "Especially in our world where every move can be your last. Isn't that right, Beatrix?" Beatrix took a step back into the shadows of the ornate pillar, contemplating her role. "Oh, I hardly think my actions could be so consequential as yours, Devlin." The playful challenge in her tone did not go unnoticed, yet the anxiety nagged at her. This was a night stitched with peril. The doors swung open with a powerful thud, silencing the banter as a figure cloaked in shadow entered, flanked by two imposing guards. Everyone paused, the air hushed, sensing the rippling tension. Yadiel's chin lifted in acknowledgement. "Is that?" Beatrix began, but Yadiel's immediate response silenced her with a raised finger to his lips. "The last thing I need is for him to see us," he whispered urgently before steering her farther into the obscurity of the crowd. Devlin's voice broke the tense silence. "Well, this should be interesting." With a quick glance at Yadiel and a knowing grin, he leaned in closer to Beatrix, a conspiratorial tone having overtaken the camaraderie. "Care to be my accomplice in stirring the pot? It's been ages since I have seen Yadiel sweat." Just then, a flaring spark told of a new potential alliance at the edges of the crowd. Old enemies now turned advocates, amplifying the uncertainties. Beatrix felt her pulse quicken, resonating with a familiar thrill. She turned to Yadiel, catching the guarded look in his eyes. "I thought we had this under control," Yadiel said, tension weaving its way between them. "Control is an illusion," Beatrix replied, daring to move closer, their breaths mingling in a warm dance. "And love, well, love is a gamble." Yadiel's expression softened for just a moment before bravado took hold once again. "Then let's put our chips on the table and raise the stakes." Her heart soared, buoyed by the calculated risk hanging between them. As the distant chatter resumed, a crackle of unyielding tension mingled with newfound hope, threads of destiny being spun, inching ever closer. Scene 28. Echoes of the past. The sun hung low over the glass-studded skyline of New Verona, casting golden rays that darted through the heavy curtains of Beatrix Caldwell's modest room. The air was thick with the scent of jasmine from a nearby bloom, a sweet reminder of the forbidden gardens where laughter and secrets mingled. Beatrix stood at her ornate mirror, testing the fit of a tailored outfit, her fingers brushing against the high collar, a final touch that concealed her identity. Each knot and fold felt like an armor that shielded her from the life she had left behind. Behind her, the soft click of the front door startled her, making her heart race. She turned, catching a glimpse of Yadiel Sinclair as he strode in, his presence filling the space with an intensity that could ignite a fire or ignite chaos. He paused, taking in the scene, his gaze lingering on the fabric she wore. A combination of admiration and concern flickered across his face. "Are you planning a conquest or just another soiree?" Yadiel teased, but the underlying tension in his tone belied the lightness of his words. "Maybe a bit of both," Beatrix replied, feigning confidence as her heart raced. "You know how these gatherings are. Something could always go wrong." He stepped closer, the subtle rustle of his tailored coat punctuating the air with the promise of danger. His fingers brushed against her shoulder, a lingering touch that sent shivers down her spine. "I believe you thrive in chaos, Beatrix. It's what makes you so captivating." As she turned to face him, her body tensed, betraying the storm of emotions swirling within her. She felt an urge to swoon. Yet fear held her steady. "And what of you? Are you still living in shadows?" His eyes darkened, and for a moment she saw a flicker of his burden land in the room with them, heavy and imbued with unspoken regrets. "Sometimes the shadows are the only place to hide from the light," Yadiel said, his voice a murmur against the growing distance between them. Turning away, Beatrix clenched her jaw, fighting against the familiar urge to retreat. There was too much at stake, too many reminders of her past lurking just beyond the edges of her newfound freedom. She crossed the room, the floorboards creaking beneath her weight, almost as if echoing her internal strife. "I'm not running from the past," she declared, deciding that permanence in her resolve was less shaky than the fear in her heart. "But it has a way of reminding me I'm not whole. Not yet." Yadiel's silence spoke louder than any words. There was a tension thickening in the air, as palpable as the evening humidity. She could see the way he wrestled with his own demons, the shadows that clung to him as steadfastly as her own past. "Do you ever think about what you'd leave behind if you could just break free?" Beatrix asked, her voice a mere whisper wrapped in curiosity and challenge. "Every day," he responded, his jaw taut, a flicker of vulnerability punctuating his stoic exterior. "But breaking free from what? My empire? The blood on my hands?" The images flashed before her as a flicker of memories, of choices made at a cost she could never repay. She shook her head, desperate to ground herself in the present. "You can't let it define you, Yadiel. There's more to this than just definition." His voice dropped lower, darker. "You wouldn't understand. I see the man I've become." "Then help me see who you really are," she urged, taking a step closer, the space between them charged with the weight of their respective secrets. "Like you want to show me who you truly are?" He quirked an eyebrow, his challenge met with a smirk, but the flicker of heat in his gaze proved he was a heartbeat away from overstepping the bounds between them. Without breaking eye contact, she held her breath, acutely aware of the emotions swirling around them, raw and undeniable. She was just a woman lost between two worlds, one of high society, where norms suffocated her spirit, and another, where danger and passion forced her to confront herself in ways she had never anticipated. "Maybe I need you to see me," she replied, her voice trembling just enough to betray her stability. "But first, we need to deal with those echoes." "Echoes?" Yadiel stepped back, assessing her, the air thick with longing and unrelenting questions. "Yes, the faces from my past. They won't stay quiet forever," she said with a fierce glimmer in her eyes. A sudden crash echoed from the rafters above, the sound reverberating through the walls, sending both of them spinning towards the door. Danger lurked close, an unsettling reminder that the world they had crafted was built precariously on whispered promises and shadows. "Stay close," Yadiel commanded, his protective tone igniting the air around them with anticipation. "We'll face whatever it is together," Beatrix reassured, her courage coalescing with his. Together they stepped towards the unknown, the weight of their choices hanging heavily in the air, even as new possibilities emerged on the horizon. Scene 29. A treacherous game. The moon hung heavy over the sprawling cityscape, bathing the cobblestones in a silvery hue that shimmered like precious metal. Yadiel Sinclair stood under the archway of an abandoned warehouse, the faint sound of rustling leaves punctuating the otherwise still night. The shadows danced around him, hiding secrets yet to be uncovered. He breathed in the scent of rain-soaked earth, a reminder of the gathering storm that echoed the brewing conflict within him. This was no ordinary night, and every instinct tingled with a warning. Suddenly, a figure emerged, cloaked in the shadows. Beatrix Caldwell, disguised as Bennett, approached with a measured stride, her eyes glinting with determination, even as uncertainty fluttered beneath the surface. She paused a moment, the tension thick between them, as if the very air crackled with unspoken words. "You called for a meeting," she said, her voice steady yet hushed, as if afraid the ghosts of their past might overhear. "Not just any meeting," he replied, his voice low. "We're playing a dangerous game. There are rumors swirling about a new player in our world, one who doesn't follow the rules. Oh, I do love it when they don't. Makes for a more interesting evening." Beatrix stepped closer, her bravado masking the flicker of anxiety in her heart. "Do you have a plan?" "Plans shift like smoke, Bennett. We need to be ready to adapt." Yadiel leaned forward, his eyes locked on hers. Their breaths mingled in the cool night air, and for a fleeting moment, the weight of their circumstances faded, leaving just the two of them standing on the brink of something uncharted. "Adaptation is my specialty," Beatrix countered, letting a hint of a smile grace her lips. The fleeting levity ignited a spark in the air, sending a charge through Yadiel, pulling him closer still. "Then let's see how well you can adapt," he whispered, letting the statement hang between them, charged with unforeseen implications. Before she could reply, a crash shattered the stillness. Yadiel's body instinctively tensed as his instincts roared to life, the instinct of a man used to the unpredictability of danger. "Stay close," he instructed, his tone shifting from playful to serious. "I wouldn't dream of wandering off," Beatrix teased. Yet as she spoke, shadows emerged from the alleys, 3 figures cloaked in darkness, moving with swift purpose toward them. The tension snapped, and the air thickened with the weight of impending violence. Without thinking, Yadiel shifted into a protective stance, aligned with Beatrix as they faced the oncoming threat. The trio stepped into the light, revealing their faces, a sneer on one, smirk on another, and the third a wild-eyed woman, fingers twitching at her sides as if eager for a fight. "Well, well," the smirking man drawled, "if it isn't the crime lord and his pretty little shadow. Both, you must have thought it would be cozy hiding here. Surprise." "Get away from her," Yadiel commanded, his demeanor icy. "You don't want to make this mistake." "Oh, we're not afraid of you, Sinclair," the sneering man replied, a knife glinting in his hand like a promise of chaos. Beatrix, adrenaline coursing through her veins, did not hesitate. "Yadiel, behind you!" she shouted, darting to the side just as one of their assailants lunged. Yadiel countered with a swift kick, sending the man sprawling into the nearby wall. A cacophony erupted, footfalls pounding against the cobblestones as Beatrix threw herself into the fray, her confidence buoyed by the thrill of the fight. Glancing at Yadiel, their eyes met in the thick of it, a silent understanding, a bond forged stronger in skirmish than some might achieve in lifetimes. In the midst of the chaos, the wild-eyed woman lunged at Beatrix, her long hair whipping like a snake. Beatrix sidestepped, her body moving on instinct, spinning to deliver a fierce kick that sent the woman sprawling. Breathless from the battle, the duo fell back against the wall, bruised but united. Their faces inched closer, the world around them fading to an echo as the danger dissipated into nothingness. "Quite the team we make," Yadiel murmured, eyes blazing with palpable heat. "Let's not get too accustomed too quickly," Beatrix replied, lips curling into a playful smile, heartbeats strumming in rhythm with their battle-worn breaths. And as they stood there, the city breathing around them, a profound silence enveloped them, a silence filled with the promise of what was to come. "Yadiel," she started, her voice a half-whisper as he edged closer still, the world shrinking to a singular moment. But before she could finish, the space between them vanished. Their lips met in a rush of warmth, a collision of longing and urgency that ignited the air around them, before finally fading to a tender embrace as the night held its breath. Scene 30. Forbidden Longing. The low glow of candlelight flickered against the opulent fabrics of the dimly lit study, casting dancing shadows on the intricate wallpaper. A warm silence enveloped Yadiel Sinclair and Beatrix Caldwell, thick with unspoken tension as they stood mere feet apart. Beatrix examined the framed artwork on the wall, glancing back over her shoulder with a raised brow. "Do you ever wonder how many secrets these walls have seen?" she asked, her voice low, a hint of challenge lacing her words. Yadiel leaned back against the polished oak desk, arms crossed, a faint smile playing on his lips. "Secrets breed like smoke in the dark. It's how the world works, isn't it? Actions hidden beneath layers of charm." Beatrix moved closer, her heart racing. Perhaps some truths are worth bringing into the light. A charged silence fell between them, each measuring the unacknowledged desire that breathed deep into their shared space. Yadiel's gaze intensified, drawing her in. "Some truths," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "are too dangerous to discover." He stepped forward, closing the gap, the air crackling between them. Beatrix felt a rush of heat, a sudden urgency rising in her chest. She clenched a fist, fighting back the impulse that threatened to consume her. And yet, here we are, in the dark, with dangerous truths swirling about. He tipped his head, eyes burning bright. "What are we doing, Beatrix? Are we flirting with fire, or are we simply caught in the smoke?" His voice held an edge, a question cloaked in the weight of his own secrets. "As long as we're careful, perhaps we can play with fire," she teased, albeit with a tremor that betrayed her. Yadiel stepped even closer, fingertips brushing against the wall beside her, creating a minuscule but undeniable barrier. His breath mingled with the floral scent of her hair jasmine and something electric, stirring memories of stolen moments beneath the stars. Careful? He echoed, a hint of disbelief threaded through his tone. In this world, there's no such thing as caution. Their eyes locked, and the world around them faded, filled instead with the thundering pulse of anticipation. Beatrix edged nearer, warring against a powerful pull that felt both terrifying and exhilarating. Maybe that's exactly why I'm here, she challenged, her voice steady, though it wavered within. Yadiel tilted his head, intrigue dancing in his dark eyes. You seek danger, an exhilarating escape from a world that confines you? Is it so wrong to desire a different life? The question hung in the air, a challenge daring him to respond. Not wrong, he murmured, the gravity of the moment swirling thickly around them. But perilous. You don't know what you're inviting in. Maybe not, but I'm drawn to the chaos you embody. Beatrix's voice dipped, vulnerability tinged with strength, each word tasting of daring. There was courage in the confession that lingered in the silence between them, her heart thundering in response. Yadiel stepped into her space, the warmth from his body cascading over her like a soft cloak. And what if I'm lost in the chaos, he asked, voice low, dangerously close to her ear. Then perhaps we could save each other. She breathed, holding her breath in the rising tension. In that flicker of vulnerability, Yadiel hesitated, but just as quickly he leaned in, claiming the breath between them. The distance vanished, and with it, the weight of their secrets. The kiss was a sweet bend of urgency and restrained longing, a beautiful collision of hope and fear. Just as quickly, they pulled apart, both startled by the fire ignited within the brief contact. The realization of what they had almost crossed overwhelmed them. Consider this a taste of the chaos, he said, his voice roughened with breathlessness. Beatrix laughed softly, though disbelief coursed through her. Is this how we dance now? A step into peril, followed by a retreat? Only to keep the stakes high, he replied, a teasing glint in his eyes. They shared a moment of longing, a promise suspended in the air, as the weight of uncertainty loomed large. Just remember, Beatrix dared, a challenge lingering on her lips. The fire can also warm if you let it. Yadiel nodded, determination glinting in his gaze. Then let's see what burns. Scene 31, The Mask of Deception. The ornate ballroom shimmered under the weight of rich chandeliers, casting a golden hue onto the assembled guests swathed in glittering costumes and elaborate masks. Yadiel Sinclair stood at the edge of the crowd, his keen gaze sweeping over the space, each subtle exchange echoing the gravity of their circumstances. As music swelled around him, he turned to Beatrix Caldwell, whose stunning red dress clung to her figure, inciting gasps from admirers. Her mask, delicately adorned with feathers, barely concealed her warm hazel eyes, which sparked with mischief. Why do you always choose the loudest outfit in the room? Yadiel teased, a hint of concern threading through his tone. Beatrix smirked, adjusting her mask. Perhaps it's to distract from my unassuming nature, she replied, twirling on her heels, the fabric of her dress swaying like a flame. But beneath her laughter lay a tremor of anxiousness. Tonight felt different, the air thick with unsaid words and hidden agendas. Or perhaps, he replied, his voice low, you're trying to attract the wrong kind of attention. She faltered, a flicker of annoyance crossing her face before she masked it with sarcasm. And here I thought you enjoyed competition. After all, you're surrounded by it. Silence fell between them, punctuated only by the soft cadence of string instruments and laughter echoing off marble walls. Yadiel's brooding demeanor clashed with her effervescent spirit, their contrasting energies creating a palpable tension that shimmered in the air, igniting an unspoken argument looming just beneath the surface. Is this really necessary? He asked, lowering his voice as they slipped slightly away from prying ears, though they remained within earshot of a group of gossipy society women, clad in pastel gowns. You know it'll attract attention we can't afford. She stepped closer, the proximity stirring the warmth between them. You think they would look at you if they weren't drawn to me, Yadiel? Maybe they're jealous. Maybe they see what I'm willing to become. As the words left her lips, a flurry of emotions darting through her eyes, her determination was evident. I just want to keep you safe, he interjected, a thread of vulnerability underscoring his usual bravado. Safe or away from the truth? Beatrix challenged, drawing back slightly, her hands fisting at her sides, almost daring him to disagree. Both, if I have to, Yadiel snapped, his patience fraying as he indicated with a nod to a pair of men lurking near the punch table, their glances sharp like broken glass. You think they care about us enough to play fair? This isn't a game of masquerade, Beatrix. Then what is it? She shot back, her voice lowering. Emotions leaped like flames from her heart. What if the game is all we ever have? You can't keep me sheltered from the reality of our world. She hesitated, searching his face for understanding. If you want me with you, then include me. Just as the air grew heavier with unsaid emotions, a distant crash shattered their intense moment, redirecting their focus to a group of partygoers tumbling over each other, laughter fading quickly into concern. The chaos unfurled behind them. Sensing a wave of panic, Beatrix's grip tightened around Yadiel's forearm. Let's go, Yadiel urged, scanning the crowd. His instincts screamed danger, a fire igniting in his belly. Together, she insisted, her resolve blossoming like spring flowers.